What's up, guys? It's Mike Frank with Berkshire Hathaway coming to you again. Change of pace, right? We're in our conference room now. This is our larger conference room in the back of our office. It is completed. A couple little things need to get up on the wall, but obviously fresh paint, really nice, clean, and bright spaces. We're really excited to kind of get back into the office and start working with what would be our sense of normalcy, right? Especially with the mask mandate somewhat lifted. Still wearing masks here in Baltimore, which does raise a question. How are we showing houses, right? So for the greater time being, what we're setting our expectation for our clients is that if we're in the counties and we're in an area that the mask mandate is lifted, we are showing houses without masks as long as our clients are comfortable. But when we're walking into someone's occupied home, we're asking our clients to wear masks just out of consideration for the sellers. It's kind of still new, it's kind of still weird, but we're trying to have respect and consideration. Though we all may be vaccinated, it may not show the sellers that we have the most respect for them if we walk through their home breathing and touching on all their stuff. I do suspect that that's going to change in the next 2 or 3 months, but for now, it's kind of our status quo. We just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable, make sure that everybody's acting responsibly, and in the end of the day, we want to do the best thing for our clients and for our sellers. That's what that looks like. So, last week, we talked a little bit about different types of row homes that you could find in Baltimore. It was actually an eye-opening experience for myself, and I know for so many of you guys, because I had a lot of people reaching out to me mentioning things like I didn't even know that that was my type of home. And it is really fun and exciting to learn a little bit about the history and the architecture. So we figured, why not this week bring the different home styles that are very, very popular here in Maryland. And we're going to talk a lot about a lot of different home styles. So you can see I have a lot of paperwork here. Sorry about it. But one of the most common home styles we're just going to start out with is the Cape Cod. Cape Cods became really, really popular because of the lack of necessity for additional structure. It was easier to build, and it was easier to squeeze smaller bedrooms into the upper levels where the pitched roof were. So they became really popular in the United States around the turn of the century, the 90s into the 1900s into the 1920s, where they were able to build these really affordable and economic homes. It certainly followed through until the 40s and 50s after the war. Economic new construction was a big expansion, and we saw a lot of Cape Cods happening in areas like Parkville, in Overley, in areas like Perry Hall, or even going farther north into the Bel Air area. There were a lot of development communities that were being built up as like suburban communities to Baltimore City. So it was really neat to have those opportunities, and people have finished these with, pitched roof attics. They've created attics into bedroom spaces, and they can even dormer up the roof and create more opportunity for living spaces in such a small area. So we have some clients that have really, really small Cape Cods, 1,200, 1,300 square foot with a finished basement, but others really enjoy the style, and they've built 1,900 and 2,500 square foot Cape Cods on custom homes out in Glen Arm and farther north in Phoenix. There's a lot of opportunity for these very easy construction homes, and that's why they're obviously very desirable. So, speaking of a new construction concept, Craftsman, which is a very, very, very old style of home, but it's become very, very popular in today's modern construction. So Craftsman are known with the very square columns and lots of front porches. Oftentimes Craftsman have unique styles and designs to the exterior of the structure, whether it's in the trim or the gables or other sorts of features that you might find in a Craftsman home. The way that I like to attribute it, a Craftsman home was built by a craftsman. So the way I look at it is, when I walk into a home that has very, very little in the way of trim, very, very little in the way of ornate decoration, they're not done by a craftsman. They were people that just sort of moved in, lived in, and took care of their home. Craftsman homes oftentimes have the original columns. They're very square and block. They have a lot of design to them, a lot of depth to their style, and I find a lot of value to things like the front porch. We find Craftsman / Cape Cod homes sort of like this overlay of two different houses in Parkville, in sort of Hamilton, in the Northwest Baltimore region, as well as out into the counties, and then into some of the other areas that we wouldn't be so anticipating, but can't go on and on and on about Craftsman homes. The biggest home that we have in our area is definitely Colonials. So there's federal Colonials, there's Dutch Colonials, there's Georgian Colonials, there's English Colonials. There's so many different types of Colonials, but basically we have a ton of them around our area because they become super, super popular in the late 1900s. So obviously we have tons of federal homes all over. We have these Dutch Colonials, the ones that kind of look like a barn. Sorry to knock the Dutch Colonial if that's your style, but they kind of look like a barn. They have have these weird barn-style gambrel roofs where the windows sort of poke out of the roof on the front side of the home. And it's kind of a little weird to me, but it became really, really popular in areas that were larger homes that were a little bit bigger, trying to squeeze a little bit more house onto the same property. So we have that a lot in Timonium, in Delaney Valley Corridor, in Glenarm, in Bel Air. There's a ton of these Dutch colonial styles with that gambrel kind of like rolled down roofing. Which then kind of led into the Georgian style, which is more of that, think like a plantation home without the big front pillars, which would be something a little bit different. We'll get to that in a second. But we have these Georgian style colonials that are all over the same aforementioned areas. At one time, they were thought to be a little bit more prominent. They have roughly about the same amount of square footage, but oftentimes these would come with those side access garages that were really, really desirable in the 70s and the 80s as people started to travel for work a lot more. There was a lot of things going on in the market that really created the drive for these types of homes. And then there were people that were taking on the advantage of the 80s and creating different type of home. We're going to call them mid-century modern. So they became popular in the 70s, they became huge in the 80s, and it was the custom home to be built. Mid-century moderns have big, tall ceilings, oftentimes vaulted or cathedral ceilings, big open windows that overlook into green spaces. Mid-century modern homes became really popular in like Green Spring Valley, all throughout Pikesville, all throughout Glenarm area, where people were able to get into the community, into the forest, into the nature, and open up those spaces to have these beautiful living areas with tons of natural light. We have a lot of mid-century modern homes that are coming to the market today that have been lived in for 40 and 50 years, people that were the original owners. And these are getting renovated into beautiful $1-million homes. Oftentimes, mid-century modern homes are 1 or 2 story, but sometimes they'll just be a flat rancher where they're sitting on a level foundation and they're looking over into a valley or a green space. It's something that was really, really desirable as, again, a custom home. Another type of custom home, and I'm going to bounce around a little bit here, sorry, Liv, but another type of custom home is the modern home. Right? So we don't see a whole lot about this in our area. It's a lot more trendy in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, in New York, where there's a modern style being driven. In our area, modern homes aren't quite as popular, so we see them as more of a one-off situation. They're a custom home on a custom lot, and sometimes we will see maybe 3 or 4 of them in a community, but still we're not seeing developers or builders building these homes because the cost of building a modern home is just through the roof because of the unique style and the trimmings that come into that design from a foundational standpoint. Anyway, back to your organization, sorry. So we also have Greek Revival homes. Greek Revival homes, think of something somewhat similar to your plantation home. We see these all around sort of like Western Howard County, in Montgomery County, and obviously a little bit here in Baltimore County. They're fewer and farther between, but these are more of your old school plantation or farm houses. Sometimes people would build them as custom homes in the 70s and the 80s on 7, 12, 15 acres of land. Typically, we see these Greek Revival homes across a big expanse of front yard before they get into their sort of campground, right, where the homestead lived. Okay, so moving on from Greek Revival, we have another type of complete custom build that we don't see a lot here. Obviously, you see a lot of Mediterranean homes throughout the Midwest, throughout the Southwest. It's not a very common style here. It's not to say that it's not popular. It's just not common. We see these every once in a while. They'll pop up in a random location. Like I can think of one down the street from where my parents live in Reisterstown. But most often these Mediterranean homes are complete custom. They're complete custom one-off builds, whether it's in Western Howard County or Northern Baltimore County. We're going to see a lot of that more complete custom with really ornate finishes. I mean, Mediterranean homes are very, very unique. They're very, very ornate. But obviously you can imagine just, living along the Mediterranean, big archways, lots of stonework. They have those clay roofs, very kind of typical, if you will. Anyway, so next one would be a super common home, my favorite home, it's my house, ranch style homes. Obviously became super, super popular in the 30s, 40s, and in the 50s once, people were coming back from the war. The ranch style home was just a beautiful single level with a basement, oftentimes on a larger plot of land. Sometimes they had garages. They were sort of the everyman's, custom home. They were more one-off. They were a little bit more typical. The builder was building kind of a spec home, and then you would customize them, sort of the way that we would build a modern home today. We would build a home and we would have customizations, semi-custom from the builder. The ranch style home was that home back in the 50s. So many of them are very, very similar, but there's lots of additions. People would do bump outs, they'd do garages or breezeways. They would do things like laying the area for a pool or a foundation for a garden. And then obviously over the years, these have been renovated and developed and improved. And many of them have even gotten a second story built onto them because they're just massive, massive homes. Ranch style homes can be anywhere from 1,000 square feet to 3,000 or 4,000 square feet. Most typically, they're going to be in the 15 to 2,200 square foot range. I think I said 4,000. Maybe I said 18,000. I didn't mean it. But anyway, so they're going to be in that 1,500 to 2,200 square foot range, and they're going to have a finished basement, so it's a ton of additional space. What's next? So we have Tudors. Tudors, think like your English Tudor. We see these all around Towson, Stoneleigh, Rogers Forge, that sort of central Baltimore location just north of the city. The Tudor was really, really popular in the 20s and around the time that Towson was growing in popularity. It was a prominent community, a prominent area, and the Tudor style home was a little bit nicer than those Cape Cods that might have been built for more of an economical cost, or the Craftsman homes that were being built a little bit more economically, a little bit more semi-custom by the home builder. The Tudor style home was a little bit more of that, what we would consider a semi-custom home today, but again, back in the 20s and 30s. And then we have the last of our list here. We have our Victorian homes, which are obviously very, very popular all throughout Baltimore, but most commonly you'll find these in Lutherville, you'll find these in Catonsville, you'll find opportunities for you guys to get into a beautiful custom Victorian home in those areas, as well as in northeast, northwest Baltimore. You'll find random sporadic communities of Victorian homes, especially in Forest Park. There's a couple of larger communities that are going to have 4,000 square foot Victorian homes. If they haven't already been converted into a multi-use facility, they would be a beautiful place to raise a family. Victorians have tons of ornate design and architecture and a lot of opportunity to create custom locations for yourself and just so much going for them. It's kind of one of the oldest types of homes that we have here in Baltimore, and that's why they're located in places like Timonium, places like Catonsville, places where sort of the history goes a little bit deeper, the community's a little bit richer, and they've really restored a lot of these homes into their former glory. Anyway, look forward to shopping with you guys anytime you guys are interested. Of course, ask questions, PM us, DM us, or subscribe to the link below if you haven't already, and we'll talk to you real soon. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for weekly content. Also, check out our social media pages. The links are in the description below. See you next week.